Thursday afternoon," said one of the captors. "There was a shower." "Yes, it rained. We had you fooled that time. I was laying on the ledge above to report your movements." Several of them laughed. "We thought you were over on Spread Creek then." "I figured you thought so by the trail you left after the stack. Saturday we watched you turn your back on us up Spread Creek. We were snug among the trees the other side of Snake River. That was another time we had you fooled." They laughed again at their own expense. I have heard men pick to pieces a hand of whist with more antagonism. Steve continued. "Would we head for Idaho? Would we swing back over the divide? You didn't know which. And when we generaled you onto that band of horses you thought was the band you were hunting, we were a strong combination." He broke off with the first touch of bitterness I had felt in his words. "Nothing is any stronger than its weakest point." It was the Virginian who said this, and it was the first word he had spoken. "Naturally," said Steve. His tone in addressing the Virginian was so different, so curt, that I supposed he took the weakest point to mean himself. But the others now showed me that I was wrong in this explanation. "That's so," one said. "Its weakest point is where a rope or a gang of men is going to break when the strain comes. And you was linked with a poor partner, Steve." "You're right, I was," said the prisoner, back in his easy, casual voice. "You ought to have got yourself separated from him, Steve." There was a pause. "Yes," said the prisoner moodily. "I'm sitting here because one of us blundered." He cursed the blunderer. "Lighting his fool fire queered the whole deal," he added. As he again heavily cursed the blunderer, the others murmured to each other various "I told you so's." "You'd never have built that fire, Steve," said one. "I said that when we spied the smoke," said another. "I said, that's none of Steve's work, lighting fires and revealing to us their whereabouts." It struck me that they were plying Steve with compliments. "Pretty hard to have the fool get away and you get caught," a third suggested. At this they seemed to wait. I felt something curious in all this last talk. "Oh, did he get away?" said the prisoner then. Again they waited, and a new voice spoke huskily. "I built that fire, boys." It was the prisoner in the gray flannel shirt. "Too late, Ed," they told him kindly. "You ain't a good liar." "What makes you laugh, Steve?" said some one. "Oh, the things I notice." "Meaning Ed was pretty slow in backing up your play? The joke is really on you, Steve. You'd ought never to have cursed the fire builder if you wanted us to believe he was present. But we'd not have done much to Shorty even if we had caught him. All he wants is to be scared good and hard, and he'll go back into virtuousness, which is his nature when not traveling with Trampas." Steve's voice sounded hard now. "You have caught Ed and me. That should satisfy you for one gather." "Well, we think different, Steve. Trampas escaping leaves this thing unfinished." "So Trampas escaped too, did he?" said the prisoner. "Yes, Steve, Trampas escaped this time. And Shorty with him this time. We know it most as well as if we'd seen them go. And we're glad Shorty is loose, for he'll build another fire or do some other foolishness next time, and that's the time we'll get Trampas." Their talk drifted to other points, and I lay thinking of the skirmish that had played beneath the surface of their banter. Yes, the joke, as they put it, was on Steve. He had lost one point in the game to them. They were playing for names. He, being a chivalrous thief, was playing to hide names. They could only, among several likely confederates, guess Trampas and Shorty. So it had been a slip for him to curse the man who built the fire. At least, they so held it. For they, with subtlety, reasoned, one curses the absent. And I agreed with them that Ed did not know how to lie well. He should have at once claimed the disgrace of having spoiled the expedition. If Shorty was the blunderer, then certainly Trampas was the other man, for the two were as inseparable as dog and master. Trampas had enticed Shorty away from good, and trained him in evil. It now struck me that after his single remark, the Virginian had been silent throughout their shrewd discussion. It was the other prisoner that I heard them next address. "You don't eat any breakfast, Ed." "Brace up, Ed. Look at Steve, how hearty he eats." But Ed, it seemed, wanted no breakfast, and the tin dishes rattled as they were gathered and taken to be packed. "Drink this coffee anyway," another urged. "You'll feel warmer." These words almost made it seem like my own execution. My whole body turned cold in company with the prisoners, and as if with a clank the situation tightened throughout my senses. "I reckon if everyone's ready we'll start." It was the Virginian's voice once more, and different from the rest. I heard them rise at his bidding, and I put the blanket over my head. I felt their tread as they walked out, passing my stall. The straw that was half under me and half out in the stable was stirred as by something heavy dragged or half lifted along over it. "Look out, you're hurting Ed's arm," one said to another, as the steps with tangled sounds passed slowly out. I heard another among those who followed say, "Poor Ed couldn't swallow his coffee." Outside they began getting on their horses, and next their hoofs grew distant, until all was silence round the stable, except the dull, even falling of the rain. End of chapter 30. Chapter 31. The Cottonwoods. I do not know how long I stayed there alone. It was the Virginian who came back, and as he stood at the foot of my blankets, his eye, after meeting mine full for a moment, turned aside. I had never seen him look as he did now, not even in Pitchstone Canyon when we came upon the bodies of Hank and his wife. Until this moment we had found no chance of speaking together except in the presence of others. "Seems to be raining still," I began after a little. "Yes, it's a wet spell." He stared out of the door, smoothing his mustache. It was again I that spoke. "What time is it?" He brooded over his watch. 12 minutes to 7. I rose and stood drawing on my clothes. "The fire's out," said he, and he assembled some new sticks over the ashes. Presently he looked round with a cup. "Never mind that for me," I said. "We've a long ride," he suggested. "I know. I've crackers in my pocket." My boots being pulled on, I walked to the door and watched the clouds. "They seem as if they might lift," I said, and I took out my watch. "What time is it?" he asked. It's run down." While I wound it, he seemed to be consulting his own. "Well?" I inquired. 10 minutes past 7. As I was setting my watch, he slowly said, "Steve wound his all regular. I had to night guard him till 2." His speech was like that of one in a trance, so at least it sounds in my memory today. Again I looked at the weather and the rainy immensity of the plain. The foothills eastward where we were going were a soft yellow. Over the gray-green sagebrush moved shapeless places of light, not yet the uncovered sunlight, but spots where the storm was wearing thin, and wandering streams of warmth passed by slowly in the surrounding air. As I watched the clouds and the earth, my eyes chanced to fall on the distant clump of cottonwoods. Vapors from the enfeebled storm floated round them, and they were indeed far away, but I came inside and began rolling up my blankets. "You will not change your mind?" said the Virginian by the fire. "It is 35 miles." I shook my head, feeling a certain shame that he should see how unnerved I was. He swallowed a hot cupful, and after it sat thinking. And presently he passed his hand across his brow, shutting his eyes. Again he poured out a cup, and emptying this, rose abruptly to his feet as if shaking himself free from something. "Let's pack and quit here," he said. Our horses were in the corral and our belongings in